I stood in my kitchen the other day, just holding a lukewarm mug of coffee. I looked at the old height marks penciled on the pantry door. My kids are all grown now. They have their own mortgages, they have their own frantic Tuesday nights, and that is when it hit me. I love them with all my heart, but I can no longer expect them to be my primary scaffolding. To ask them to hold me up would be to clip their wings. It was a scary thought at first, a very lonely thought. But then, I discovered something beautiful. I found 5 specific pillars that keep me steady. These things are more reliable than a phone call. They are stronger than any family tie. Today, I want to share them with you, because once you find these 5 anchors, you will never feel adrift again. Let us talk. 1. Inner resilience. Built from past storms. You know, there is a certain kind of silence that settles into a house once the children have grown and moved away. It is not a sad silence necessarily, but it is heavy. In those quiet moments sitting on the porch with a glass of iced tea, I started to realize something profound. For years, I thought my children were the ones keeping me upright. I thought my role as their protector was what gave me my strength. But as I have gotten older, I have discovered a different kind of support. It is something I built myself, block by block, through every difficult year I survived. I call it my inner resilience. This resilience is like a quiet, steady hum in the background of my soul. It is a muscle memory that doesn't belong to my body but to my spirit. Think about it. We have all been through so much, haven't we? I look back at my late 40s, a time that felt like a blur of stress. I remember the day my firm announced they were downsizing. I was 52 years old, standing in a gray cubicle, wondering how I would pay the mortgage or keep the health insurance. That was a storm, a dark, cold storm. Then, there was the season when my parents passed away. Within just 2 years, the people who had known me since my first breath were gone. It felt like the ceiling had been taken off my world. I felt exposed and very small, and yet, I am still here. I got through the job loss. I navigated the grief. I handled the scares and the setbacks that life in the American suburbs likes to throw at us. This inner strength is different from the support of my children. My kids are wonderful. They truly are, but they are in their building years. They are busy with their own careers, their own frantic Tuesday nights, and their own mounting bills. They are preoccupied, as they should be. This resilience of mine, however, never has a busy signal. It doesn't require a return phone call. It is a self-generating power that is always, always turned on. I remember clearly that about 3 years ago I had to go in for a pretty major knee surgery. The house was quiet. My daughter was in the middle of a big move to a different state, and my son was swamped with a new project at work. I sat there on my sofa, looking at my phone. I could have called them. I could have told them I was scared or that the recovery was harder than I expected, but I chose not to. I didn't want to lean on their anxiety. Instead, I leaned on my history. I closed my eyes and I talked to myself. I said, "Remember that year you lost the house? You survived that. Remember the nights you stayed up caring for your sick father? You survived that too." I realized that I had a massive library of victories stored inside me. That realization was my anchor. It was my scaffolding. It held me up more firmly than 100 get-well-soon texts ever could. You see, resilience is reliable. It is a steady internal voice that whispers, "You have survived 100% of your worst days." It is a beautiful realization. It is a powerful realization. It changes how you see yourself in the mirror. You stop seeing a person who is getting older or becoming fragile. Instead, you see a person who is becoming fortified. If you want to feel this strength, I have a small suggestion for you. I call it a victory journal. It doesn't have to be fancy. Just get a simple notebook. Once a week, maybe on a Sunday morning while the coffee is brewing, write down one past challenge you overcame. Just one. Write down the specific trait that helped you get to the other side. Was it your patience? Was it your sense of humor? Was it your sheer, stubborn grit? When you see those victories written down, black on white, they stop being bad memories. They start being your armor. They remind you that you are not a burden and you are not alone. You are standing on a foundation that you built with your own 2 hands, and that is the strongest support there is. 2. A found family of peers and neighbors. There is something I have realized about the way we love our families as we get older. My children are like a vertical line. They connect me to the past, to the memories of them as babies, and they connect me to the future through my grandchildren. It is a beautiful, soaring connection. But, and this is important, a vertical line can be hard to lean on when the wind starts to blow. For the day-to-day reality of life in my 60s, I have found that I need a horizontal connection. I need people who are on the same level as I am. I need a found family of peers and neighbors who are walking the same path at the same time. In my neighborhood, we started something very simple. We call it the Friday Porch Club. Every Friday afternoon, around 4 o'clock, a few of us gather on someone's front porch. We bring out some cold lemonade or maybe a tray of cookies, and we just talk. The most refreshing thing about these gatherings is what we don't talk about. We don't spend the whole time talking about our children. We don't talk about their promotions or their new houses. Instead, we talk about ourselves. We talk about our current lives. We talk about our own dreams for this chapter. There is a specific kind of grace in being around people who truly understand you. They understand the nuance of a body that is changing. They understand the bittersweet feeling of a house that is too quiet. They get it. They really, truly get it. I remember a cold Tuesday last January. It was one of those mornings where everything seemed to go wrong at once. I went down to the basement and realized the water heater had completely given up. There was a huge, cold puddle spreading across the floor. My first instinct was to call my son, but he lives 3 states away. He was in the middle of a high-stakes meeting at his office. What could he really do? He would just feel guilty and worried. Just then, I saw my neighbor, Jim, walking his dog past my driveway. I poked my head out and told him I was having a bit of a basement disaster. Jim didn't hesitate. He didn't say he was busy. He walked right over, went down to the basement with a wrench, and looked at the mess. He looked at me and cracked a joke about how our plumbing was starting to act just as cranky as our knees. Jim stayed there and helped me shut off the valve. He even called a local plumber he trusted, a guy who actually answers his phone. In that moment, Jim held me up more than any long-distance phone call could. He was there. He was present. He was local. This is the power of a community network. We are all in the same foxhole together. We share a common language that our children, as much as they love us, simply cannot translate yet. Our children are still in the middle of the race. We are finally learning how to enjoy the walk. These friendships are reliable because they don't come with the emotional baggage of family dynamics. There is no old history of chores not being done or teenage arguments. It is just pure, simple, mutual support. It is about being there for each other right now, in the present. If you are feeling a little isolated, I want to give you a small piece of advice. Don't wait for the phone to ring. You have to be the one who reaches out first. It can be something small, very small. Next time you see a neighbor, don't just wave. Stop. Ask them how their garden is doing. Invite someone for a short walk down the block. Ask a friend to meet you for a coffee at that little place on the corner. Building this found family takes a little bit of effort. It's true. But the effort you put in today is the safety net that will catch you tomorrow. These horizontal connections, These friends who walk beside you, they are the ones who keep the world feeling small, warm, and manageable. They are the ones who truly hold you up. 3. The sacred flow of personal hobbies. For so many years, decades really, my life was a blur of other people's schedules. My calendar was not my own. It was filled with soccer games on Saturday mornings. It was dance recitals on Tuesday nights. It was science fairs, carpools, and school fundraisers. Back then, if you had asked me what my hobbies were, I probably would have laughed. My hobbies were, well, they were whatever my children were doing. I was a spectator in my own life. I was a professional cheerleader for everyone else's dreams. But then, the day came when the last box was packed. The car pulled out of the driveway. The house went quiet, very, very quiet, and I found myself standing in the middle of the living room, looking at my hands. I wondered, what are these hands supposed to do now? I realized then that I had to rediscover what made my heart beat. Not for my kids, not for my spouse, but for me. I decided to go back to something I hadn't touched since I was a teenager in high school: woodworking. I cleared out a corner of the garage, bought a few basic tools, and just started. There is something so profoundly grounding about working with wood. There is the scent of fresh cedar. Do you know that smell? It is earthy, it is honest, it is real. And then there is the feel of it. When I run my hand over the grain of a piece of oak, when I feel the tactile resistance of the wood under a hand plane, I feel connected to something solid. I feel connected to the earth. When I am in my workshop, the world's noise just fades away. The worries about the future, the little aches in my joints, the news on the television, it all disappears. I call it the flow. It is a sacred state of mind where time seems to stop. And here is why this holds me up more than my children can. This joy is consistent. It is reliable. Unlike a phone call from a busy child, I do not have to wait for the flow. I do not have to check my phone 20 times to see if my happiness has arrived in a text message. I do not have to hope that someone else is in a good mood so that I can feel good too. I can walk into that garage at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday morning or 10 o'clock on a Sunday night, and I can create my own peace. My sense of purpose is no longer tied to being the provider or the fixer. My purpose is found in the curve of a chair leg or the smooth finish of a handmade bowl. It is a sense of accomplishment that is entirely mine. It belongs to me. If my daughter is too busy to chat because of a big meeting, it's okay. If my son forgets to call because his toddler is teething, I understand. I don't feel empty, and I don't feel forgotten. I just picked up my tools. I focus on the wood. I focus on the craft. My happiness no longer depends on someone else's schedule. That is a very powerful feeling. It is a very freeing feeling. For those of you listening who might feel a little adrift, I want to suggest something. I want you to try something new. I want you to adopt what I call a beginner's mind. Go find something you know absolutely nothing about. Maybe it is pottery. Maybe it is bird watching in the local park. Maybe it is learning how to play a few chords on a guitar. Permit yourself to be a novice. Permit yourself to be a student again. Permit yourself to fail, to laugh, and to try again. When you find your own version of the flow, you are building a private sanctuary for your spirit. You are building a pillar of support that will hold you up through any season of life. You are not just a parent. You are a creator. You are a person with your own light, and it is never, ever too late to let that light shine. 4. Mindfulness as an emotional anchor. You know, something strange happens when the house finally gets quiet. For decades, the pace of life has been so fast. It is a whirlwind of school schedules, work deadlines, and family dinners. You are so busy doing things for everyone else that you don't really have time to think. But as we get older, the pace of life begins to slow down, and that is when I noticed something. As the world outside got quieter, the volume of the thoughts inside my head started to get much, much louder. Without the frantic distractions of parenting, I found myself worrying. I worried about the future. I worried about my health. I worried about things that hadn't even happened yet. My mind was like a runaway train racing toward a destination of what-ifs. What if I run out of money? What if my health takes a turn? What if I end up lonely? To find my balance, I turned to something very simple, yet very profound. I started a daily mindfulness practice, now every single morning before the rest of the world is even awake. I go out to my back porch. I sit in my favorite wooden chair with a warm cup of tea, and for a few minutes, I do nothing. I just breathe. This practice has become my emotional anchor. It is the thing that holds me steady through the ebbs and flows of aging. It is the heavyweight that keeps my ship from drifting away in the middle of a storm. I remember a time, about 2 years ago, when the financial markets were having a very rough season. I looked at my retirement portfolio, my 401k, and the numbers were dropping. It felt like a pit in my stomach. Normally, in the past, my first instinct would have been to call my children. I would have vented to them. I would have shared my stress. I would have looked to them to tell me everything was going to be okay. But then, I stopped myself. I realized that my children were already dealing with their own stresses. They have mortgages, they have young families, they have their own bosses to answer to. Why would I want to transfer my anxiety onto their shoulders? Why would I want to make my scary thoughts their problem? Instead, I sat down. I closed my eyes, and I used my breathing exercises. I breathed in, and I breathed out. I did this until I found what I call my calm center. Once I found that quiet place inside myself, I was able to look at the financial situation logically rather than emotionally. I was able to tell myself, you have lived through market dips before. You have a plan. You are okay. This spiritual grounding is more reliable than family support. Do you want to know why? Because it is accessible to you 24 hours a day. It is available at 7 in the morning, and it is available at 3 in the morning when you can't sleep. You don't have to wait for a return phone call. You don't have to wait for your kids to have a free moment to listen to you. You are the one in control. You are the one holding the anchor. If you are listening to this and you feel that runaway train of worry in your own mind, I want to give you a very practical tip. I call it sensory checking. It is so easy to do, and you can do it anywhere. Right now, wherever you are, just stop. Notice 3 things you can hear. Maybe it is the hum of the refrigerator, or a bird outside, or the sound of your own breath. Then, notice 2 things you can smell. Perhaps it is the scent of old books, or the laundry detergent on your shirt. Finally, notice 1 thing you can feel. Feel the texture of the chair beneath you. Feel the weight of your feet on the floor. This simple act roots you in the now. It pulls you back from the scary future and puts you right here in the present moment. It keeps the what-ifs at bay. It reminds you that in this exact moment, you are safe, you are breathing, you are okay. By practicing this every day, you build a foundation of peace that doesn't depend on anyone else. You become your own source of comfort. And there is something incredibly beautiful about knowing that you have the power to calm your own heart. 5. Purpose through contribution and mentoring. For a long time, I worried about what would happen when I finally stopped working. In our culture, we are often defined by our jobs. Our business cards tell the world who we are. When I finally retired from my career, I felt a strange sort of emptiness. I woke up on a Tuesday morning and realized I didn't have anywhere to be. I didn't have anyone waiting for my input. I felt like a ship without a rudder, just drifting in a very quiet sea. But then, I discovered something. Retirement does not mean the end of being useful. Not at all. It actually means the beginning of a different kind of contribution. I decided to start volunteering at our local community center. I signed up to be a mentor for young, small business owners who are just starting. And let me tell you, it changed everything for me. Now, every Tuesday morning, I have a reason to get dressed. I put on a nice shirt, I grab my notebook, and I head into town. I have a purpose. Sharing the wisdom I gathered over 30 years gives me a tremendous amount of strength. It is a specific kind of strength that is different from being a parent. You see, my children don't really need my professional advice anymore. They are grown, they are independent, they want to find their own way, and they want to make their own mistakes. If I try to give them too much advice, it can start to feel like a burden to them. It can create tension in our relationship. But these young entrepreneurs, they are hungry for that knowledge. When I sit across the table from a young woman trying to open her first bakery, or a young man trying to navigate a difficult contract, I can see the light go on in their eyes. I can tell them, I have been exactly where you are. I have seen this problem before. Here is how we can fix it. This work holds me up because it reminds me that I still have immense value to offer the world at large. It fosters a sense of being needed, but it is a healthy, professional kind of needed. It is a sense of legacy that extends far beyond my own DNA. It is about passing a torch to the next generation. I remember one Tuesday, a young man I had been helping finally reached his first big goal. He looked at me and said, "I couldn't have navigated this without your perspective." Those words stayed with me all week. They made me stand a little taller. They made the challenges of getting older feel much smaller. I realized that my life's experience is not just a collection of old stories. No, my experience is a treasure map for someone else. My mistakes are their guidelines. My successes are their inspiration. If you are listening to this and you feel like you are out of the game, I want to encourage you to look around your own community. Look for a local nonprofit. Look for a school that needs a tutor or a center that needs a mentor. Find a place that aligns with what you did for a living. There is a profound psychological lift that comes from realizing you still have it. You still have the skills, you still have the insight, and most importantly, you still have the heart to help. When you give back, you aren't just helping someone else. You are building a pillar of purpose that will hold you up for years to come. As we wrap up today, I want you to remember one thing. Building these pillars. It is not about pulling away from your children. Not at all. It is actually the greatest gift you can give them. When you hold yourself up, you give your kids the freedom to truly soar. Your relationships become about love and choice, not about duty or worry. It is a beautiful way to live, truly. It is a way to age with grace and with dignity. If this message spoke to your heart today, please share it with a friend who might be feeling a little adrift, and I would love to hear from you. Which of these 5 pillars do you need to focus on this week? Leave a comment below. Let us start a conversation. Thank you for spending your time with me today. You are doing much better than you think. You are stronger than you know. I will see you in the next one.